Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato. I recently traveled to the south coast of England to interview one of my favorite artists, Tori Amos. Over the past 3 decades, Tori has captivated audiences with her deeply personal lyrics, brilliant piano work, and unique approach to songwriting. From her breakout album, Little Earthquakes, to her latest work, the EP, White Telephone to God, Tori has remained one of the most innovative and influential voices in music. Here's my interview. Tori, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I wanted to talk about your upbringing and kind of how you got into music.
Well, the crazy thing is I could always play. Since I can remember, I can't remember life without playing. So I wasn't taught at first. And I guess in some ways that comes with its gifts and its downsides. So I could hear things and play. My dad was a preacher and would go to the Methodist church in the morning. And once he left, my mother would take off her apron. And she'd worked at a record store. So she would play me her record collection, which consisted of stuff from the 40s onwards. And then my brother would come home, who was 10 years older than I. And he would bring in records, The Doors, whatever, 60s music, and say, learn this before Dad gets home. And then you're going to need to play it while he's reading the paper. But you can't say what it is because it's devil, it's devil music. Mm-hmm. And so that was my early beginnings. And then people in the church suggested that I needed formal training, and they were proper musicians. So I auditioned at the Peabody Conservatory at 5 and was accepted on full scholarship and then started.
So what did your initial piano lessons consist of? Were you reading right from the beginning?
They had a specific way of teaching then, and we have to remember this was 1968. So I'm sure they would teach differently now, mm-hmm. But I'm just telling you how it was, things were taught. So, unfortunately, at such a young age, I could play, the Beatles catalog, scores of musicals, and then they taught me with hot cross buns. So I went from this wealth of amazing music that, let's face it, it's difficult now to explain because there's so many, I just have to say it, people copying artists of the 60s. Yeah. Whether it's, the Beatles, Stones, whatever, Joni, people copying now after the last 50, whatever years it is, I can't count. But at the time, it was explosive. This music, and you remember. Yeah. So to live at that time in your ears, hearing things, combinations, susses, inversions that we hadn't heard. Yes, of course, the jazzers were doing things, and that time was such an explosive time as well. But the 60s was such an unbelievable time. And so to go from playing that music to hot cross buns was a real downer. Yeah. I mean, it was depressing. And so this thing that I love so much, this thing called music, became like a torment. And so you're taught with quarters on your hands for positioning, and you can't, and the rulers go underneath. And, that's part of my technique, and there are parts of my past that, I guess, how do you say it? I'm made up of all these things. Mm-hmm. How I play is made up of these things. But I think for the first year of my life at the Peabody, it was, I cry all the time, mm-hmm. in private. And then, then I got to Bach and the music that he was writing for children and Mozart. And then that changed everything. But that took about at least a year and a half to get through Mary Had a Little Lamb and Hot Cross Buns and all of that. It was like a punishment. You know, you can play all this music and now you're being punished by playing this horrible music homework.
Did you continue to play the music? Did you continue to learn songs, or would you only practice your classical music?
My father thought I was practicing pieces as the years went on. And what would be happening is my brother would keep on bringing in music. And so I'd be doing variations on Zeppelin and him thinking that I'm doing Baroque. He didn't know. My father was kind of tone deaf, so he didn't really know what I was up to. But so I got to play devil music in a classical style. And that's how I survived.
So would you say you improvised right from the beginning?
I think so.
And it was easy for you to figure out these songs, right? Beatles songs, things like that.
I don't know about the word easy. It just, I was guided. I've always had the muses with me. Some people call it different things, you know, the universe, their guides. I don't know if you're religious, you might call them angels. I don't know, but for me, they were muses. And they would guide me.
I had told you yesterday when we met that the first thing that I ever heard you play was on the radio, and it was your cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was in 1992. Your record came out, Little Earthquakes. When I heard it, the combination of your incredible singing on it and the piano arrangement of it was so beautiful. I kept thinking, who is this person that is playing, it sounds like Prokofiev's arrangement of Nirvana song?
When I first heard Smells Like Teen Spirit, I thought it was a tragedy, meaning I was listening to a contemporary work of tragedy. And it was clear to me that that's what it was, and I was crying. I was in a hotel room, I believe in Sweden. I saw the video, and I had tears running down my face because it affected me in that way. I could hear that's the power of them and their performance and the piece itself and the construct. And it ripped my heart out. So it was clear the piano wanted me to bring it to her. And so I offered it to her. And she guided me. Along with the muses, too. I mean, they work as their beings, they exist. You know, this is alive. They're alive to me. And people that are really skeptical, like the person sitting in there, has seen, you know, songs just come through that I've never played before. And he happened to be rolling tape. One of those songs is a song called Marianne, off of a record called Boys for Pele. And I've never been able to play it like that since. I do a variation on the theme, but I can't do it. Whereas Smells Like Teen Spirit, I took it to the piano and worked with it and refined it a bit, and we recorded the version that you heard.
It has the power in your piano arrangement of that visceral energy of the three-piece band of Nirvana playing it, but you do it through the dissonances that you use, create that angst. I'd like to play it, actually.
Load up on guns, bring your friends, it's fun to lose and to pretend she's overboard and self-assured. Oh no, I know a dirty word. Hello, 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 hello. was said what I do best and fullest gift. I feel blessed. Our little group has always been and always will be until the end. Hello, 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 hello. With the lights out, it's less dangerous. Here we are now, entertain us. I feel stupid and contagious. Here we are now, entertain us. Yes.
That is so beautiful. The phrasing, the points where you just, there's a breath in the piano part. Is that just one performance all the way through?
Oh, yeah, that one.
Your choice of where to go, like going up into the upper register during the chorus there, and then returning back down. Is that just something that you naturally feel? Do you say it needs to go here?
I went to the song itself, not the artist that wrote it. I go to the piece and I say, if I'm supposed to serve you in any way, if I may, show me. And I surrender to it. There's something very much about respecting. I'm not the mother of that song. I'm the mother of many others, but I'm not the mother of that.
Right.
So I must ask permission to serve it, but not, I don't go to the creators because they are the mothers, but I go to the spirit of the piece. And it will tell me, and there have been pieces that are just like, T, I don't think I'm for you. You can have a drink and hang out, but you shouldn't cover me. That's okay.
So I went out the next day and I bought the 5-song EP and I bought Little Earthquakes. And you had Angie and Thank You by Led Zeppelin on there. Can you talk about your relationship with their music?
Well, yeah, a huge influence, believe it or not. And it always made sense to me. That music always made sense to me. And it had so much light and so much of the goddess energy. And I felt that there was so much of the Magdalene in their music, and sacred was sacred. You know, I played the bars for a long time. I turned pro at 13. I've been doing weddings and funerals. My dad would get me 2 for 1. Funeral in the morning, wedding in the afternoon.
Excellent.
I always liked the funerals better. But yeah, so I had started doing that around 9 or 10. And then I'd been kicked out of the Peabody by the time I was 11 because I wanted them to teach the Beatles. And somebody said, a professor there said, nobody will know who they are in 30 years from now. And I had a smart mouth at the time, and I said something. And so I lost my scholarship, and, you know, on a vicar salary, we couldn't afford it, and they didn't want me there anyway. So I turned pro at 13. And the only place that would have me, my dad knocked on doors, and nobody would give me a chance. And then this guy with gold chains standing outside of a door said, hang on, let me get the manager. And the manager came out and said, let's see what she's made of. You'll play for tips. And what was strange about that, I noticed quite quickly, there were no women in the room. There were only men. And after a while, one of them came up and said, why is your chaperone in costume? I said, oh, that's not a costume. like the village people. I said, no, he's a minister. And then it was explained to me I was in a gay bar, and that was my start. And in playing the bars, to answer your question, I would play Angie, and I would play Thank You. And so it was part of my piano bar repertoire that I developed over the years, so those songs were very close to my heart. And when they said, you know, can you do an EP of songs, they just came to me as just very close friends.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. Of the people that regularly watch my channel, 58% are actually not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button now. This will help me to get even more of my dream guests and continue to grow my channel. Thank you. And all of a sudden you started appearing everywhere. You know, I saw your this song.
Excuse me, but can I be you for a while? My dog won't bite if you sit real still. I got the Antichrist in the kitchen yelling at me again. Yeah, I can hear, been saved again by the garbage truck. I got something to say, you know, but nothing comes. Yes, I know what you think of me, you never shut up. Yeah, I can hear that, but what if I'm a mermaid in these jeans of his with her name still on it? Hey, but I don't care, 'cause sometimes I said, sometimes I hear my voice, and it's been here, silent all these years.
That opening piano line is so unusual. I had never heard anything like that in a song that was being played on MTV. And the counterpoint with the high melody notes. And I thought, this is brilliant. How do you come up with a style like that?
Well, I think I had my finger on the button when I was 5, before I entered the conservatory. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, I had written many songs and been turned down many, many times by record companies. And no, it wasn't Silent all these years. It wasn't that style exactly, but I was working towards something as a teenager. And after so many rejections, I mean, I couldn't count them after a while, I started listening to people in the industry. Big mistake, but I did. And I started chasing it, chasing things that I was hearing on the radio. And the problem with being able to play a lot of what you can hear, there's a curse here, this, is that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so I started to dilute my style by becoming everything else, which is just a palette of colors all smudged together. So I lost my voice, my uniqueness, and became a poor copy of many other things. I think somebody called Why Can't Tori read a third-rate Benatar? I'd say it's about a fifth-rate Benatar, but anyway.
That was your previous band.
Yes, that I was in with Matt Sorum.
With Matt Sorum, that's right.
Yes. I had to learn a pretty harsh lesson, but it's one of the best lessons I've ever learned, which is failure. I remember walking into a restaurant off of Santa Monica Boulevard, one that I had frequented, and I heard people giggling quietly. And it was an industry hangout. And I had just been called a bimbo in Billboard. And I got back to my little apartment and I started to just cry on the floor. And I asked myself this question: how do you go from prodigy to bimbo? Because, Tori, you've done that. That's what you've achieved. Here you are. And I went over to a friend of mine's house. I didn't even have a piano. I had torched all that, metaphorically, of course. Mm-hmm. And she had a piano, and she was smoking some weed. And I just started to play. And she said, "This is what you need to be doing. This music, whatever this is you." And I got a piano in my little place. And I haven't really looked back. So Silent all these years was the story of my life at that point, picking myself off the floor. And my mother said, "This is the best thing, honey, that could ever happen to you," because I was worried you'd never get out of that boosty.
Was it the same record deal that you were signed to?
Doug Morris wouldn't drop me.
Interesting.
I begged him to. And he said, "I'm not doing it." And I said, "Well, I'm going to write my own music and it's going to be piano based." He goes, "I love Elton John." I'm like, "Tori, I love Elton." I'm like, "It's not going to be Elton. And I love Elton too, but it's not going to be that." But when I did hand in Little Earthquakes, the first version of it,
yeah,
they wanted to take all the pianos off and replace them with guitars. A very famous producer suggested this. And because I'd had the failure, because I'd spent 4 years picking myself off the kitchen floor, it took 4 years for me to do it. I was in a place here where I had made the commitment to this. And I said to myself, I have to wake up with self-respect as a musician. And if that means I have to go back to piano bar, which I had done since I was 13 years old, and now I'm in my mid-20s, easily, and more mid-20s. And then I'll do that. I'll go back to the piano bar, but I'm going to wake up and compose music that I respect this instrument and myself. And so I went to see Doug when he was in LA, and I said, "Sell me. Sell me." He said, "What are you talking about, Tori?" I said, "Sell me. Sell me to Gary Gersh. He'll buy me." He said, "If Gary wants you, I'm not selling you." And I said, "Well, the only way that this is going to work, because I'm not promoting, I'm not going to be part of it. So good luck with that. If you take the pianos off, I will give you 4 more songs." And he said, "Well, the producer you just worked with has blown the budget and didn't leave you any money. Did he leave you any money?" And I said, "No, I don't have a penny to my name." He said, "Well, then you're going to have to go back and work at the piano bar, aren't you?" He said, "You'll never forget this lesson. I'm not being cruel. I won't take the pianos off, but you give me 4 more songs." Or he said, "Give me another song." And I offered 4, to be fair. He just said, "Give me 1 more." And I gave him 4. And the record wouldn't be the same without those 4. And I did go back to the piano bar. But that was okay. That was a different type of lesson that I had to learn. And friends came together and helped me make these 4 songs, and I co-produced it with Eric Ross. And we pulled in friends to come and play, and they did, for very little money.
Wow.
And then Doug accepted the record, but he got Silent All These Years. That was on the original. He got it after a couple weeks. And he said, I understand this now. But I like the 4 songs. They've made it a better record. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. So how we got there, taking the pianos off would have been wrong. But adding more to it was right. So sometimes how we get to a finished album, how we got there, you know, it's saying no to some things and being open to others.
And then Silent All These Years was a success.
The crazy thing is, when I wrote it, I had no idea Anita Hill would be on television talking to the world and talking about her assault, and said something to the effect, I will be silent no more. And I was watching that in the autumn of 1991, knowing Silent All These Years was coming out in October, a month later. And this is how sometimes, as a songwriter, you have no idea when world events are going to cross your personal journey and struggle, and that somebody else's personal journey and struggle would become a political phenomena and change women's history forever, Anita Hill. And so when that song arrived, we can't forget the energy field at the time, that this explosion had just happened out of Washington, D.C. I was in England at the time and saw what it was doing to England, much less to the States. So there was a consciousness that was ripe to hear something like that. I will be silent no more, because I've been silent all these years.
In 1992, MTV was incredibly important to music that I don't think people nowadays even, a lot of young people don't even know what MTV was.
It was very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it could change your career.
Yeah.
And if it ignored you, you could be forgotten. We had no social media, so it had such a strong, powerful influence.
That video was a great video. Was that something that you were involved in the production of, as far as the idea for what it was going to be? How did it work back then?
This was all from the brain of a brilliant woman named Cindy Palmano. Mm-hmm. And she shot the artwork for the album. And it all came from her mind. The story, we became very, very close. And she shot all the videos for Little Earthquakes.
Yep.
But this was her imagination. She's a brain the size of a planet. And was such a visual being. And we spent a lot of time talking about the songs and what surrounded them and what influenced them and how they were channeled.
And were you involved in the cut of the video? I always wondered about things like that, how artists were involved in videos. Nowadays, you have, Premiere and Final Cut Pro and things like that people have on their computers, and they can be involved in the making of their video. But back then it was I
can't really recall the details of it, Rick, because I had so much faith in her. Wow. I had faith, and I just wanted to be present as an artist and be in front of the camera and allow her to direct me and try to be as genuine as possible, knowing you've got a crew of people watching, and to be able to really rip your skin off and emote in front of some of them, many of them strangers. But I trusted her, and that was the right thing to do. So I just allowed her to take control of the process, and I'm glad I did. I like being collaborative in that way. I like giving people their freedom as an artist so that they can explore and express. And if for some reason they don't get it right or we don't all get it right, well, we'll just do something else. You know, I think if you have freedom, freedom is the most important thing to give to your collaborators. And then we'll figure it out.
You have a hit song back then. Do you all of a sudden, does the entire world change, or does it happen gradually?
Yeah, it changed fast. And to be honest with you, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't. And sometimes, possibly, I handled it quite badly.
In what way?
Getting a message that so-and-so called and would like to meet you for lunch, and me not going, not because I was aloof, but because I was terrified. This was one of my heroes. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't Led Zeppelin, so.
It wasn't Robert Plant.
No, I got to work with him later, and he was so gracious, and that was a wonderful experience. Very about freedom. Mm-hmm. We did a duet together down by the seaside.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience in the studio, and very collaborative. But back to things happening quickly in 92. Yeah, I was terrified. I didn't know what to say to some of these people that I had played their music for years and years and years and years, doing variations on the theme. And I didn't have media training. Mm-hmm. Not that anybody did, so it's not right. Like I was a, poor ginger me, poor me. No, it was just I think some people were able to handle it a bit better, and I didn't realize that I'm actually an introvert. I play that I'm not, but, and I know what's expected of me. But at the time, it was the songwriter. I couldn't segregate the songwriter from the performer. And that's something I had to really learn how to do in 1992. So that eventually I figured out for myself that I needed to leave the songwriter back in the dressing room and I won't say invent, but I'll say morph. Mm-hmm. Into something else, into this energy force, so that then the songs could come through me, but I was serving them in a different way. And of course, I knew how to play live because I've been playing live since I was 13, but it was the media attention that I didn't know how to deal with it first, and it took a little bit of time to figure that out.
Now, you play this Bosendorfer piano, mm-hmm. and I asked you just before we started, it has extra keys on the bottom, and you used the entire range of the piano. Have you always played these pianos?
Well, they had Bosendorfers at the Peabody, so I was fortunate enough to play them. But when I got to a point where I could choose, then yeah, I was gonna always Bosendorfer for me, yeah.
If a piano doesn't sound right in the room, are you uninspired? Or if it sounds amazing, if you're in a room and the piano sounds amazing, all of a sudden you have ideas.
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't really think about this. Yeah, I mean, sure, you know.
Beautiful.
She's confidant, friend.
You pedal with your left foot. You've always faced towards the audience when you sing. And is that something that you did back even when you were young?
Depending on where the instrument was placed, sometimes the instrument would be an upright and the keys would be here and the audience would be here. So it would be more like that. As I moved into the stage, it seemed to be the only way to do it, in my mind, because there needed to be a conversation.
Right.
And an opening. It was a one-woman show.
Yeah.
In 92 and 94. So I was reliant, yes, on the instrument, but I was reliant on the audience. In a way, they were the band.
Yeah.
And so we needed to collaborate. And it seemed like the only sensible thing to do is to open myself up and include them and invite them in to collaborate. And I changed the show every night. So that was really something I had to find, I guess. You know, this is going from piano bar, but thank God I had all those years. I don't want to downplay that. I'm so grateful because I wouldn't have been able to do 6 shows a week for a year by myself. You know, there's no drummer there was no Matt Chamberlain
Right.
or Ash Sohan to turn and say, you know, just give them a nod and know they could take it. With the bass player, they can take it for a minute while I grab some water. No, I had to include getting a sip of water in with the rhythm of the audience, because you can lose your stage within moments. You can lose it. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And that was terrifying to me. So it was about, okay, don't try and be David Copperfield. Don't make this an illusion. Make it magic. Water is part of it. Even if you're talking to them while you're drinking water and you're just having these conversations. And in the old days, I think I'd chat more. So it was more inclusive. Mm-hmm. But I had to find it. It was finding this, though, in front of hundreds of people every night. But we're back to having faith in them. You know, when you have faith in people that are coming to see you, it's kind of it sounds like a paradox, but you're commanding your stage by surrendering at the same time.
This is your song, Precious Things. This is from a live gig in 2003. so heavy. The groove, everything, but you're playing when you come in, it's so rock. It's and the ensemble playing, it sounds so full.
Well, there are three of us.
Yeah.
So that's Matt Chamberlain on drums and John Evans on bass and pedals. And, you know, when you're playing with guys like that, you got to step it up. You know, for them to be able to play at their ultimate and not hold back, I'm just going to say it, or dumb it down, because, you know, they're power players.
Yes.
So to be able to see them at their best and have their freedom, then my chops have to be at their best. And I've been playing with them for several years by this point.
Yeah.
So we had a language that had developed. And I'd say a marriage. The three of us were in a marriage for sure. Music related, of course, but it's emotional. It's about trust. And it's about, you know, when Matt's behind those drums, my God.
He's amazing.
Thor's hammer.
Right.
You know, truly.
Yeah.
And it's not noise. That's the crazy thing. And not to take anything away from John, but I think to play with drummers on that level, that he has an inner time in his being. And when he sits behind those drums, he transforms. Something happens. I can't explain it. But his cymbal work too, you know, there's never anything harsh. His cymbals are so delicate. Mm-hmm. And some drummers just, you know, it's more thrashing.
Yeah.
His is like a ballet.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was in so much awe of playing with both of them. And I had so much joy doing it. And I had so much joy playing with Ash Sohn this past tour and John Evans. So it was a trio again. But yeah, hearing that, sure, I had to step up.
It's interesting because to me, when I listen to it, it's like there's a trio and then there's a singer. And it's
I think you're right.
yeah, and it really seems like that because you come in and you're just playing the three of you, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a singer here with the band too, and then you kind of take on this different role. But yet, to me, even when you're singing and playing, it's almost like your piano playing is part of the band, and then your singing is just you on your own.
I feel like there are two different events occurring at the same time. There's the player who so wants to be in with the band. I mean, with them.
Yeah.
And communicating with them. And almost crossing the galaxy with them. It feels like we're traveling, hurtling through the galaxy together. And time is suspended, although rhythm is not.
Right.
But time is. That's true magic for me, music. When it's, yes, the studio experience is different and magic can be created together. But when you're live, you're also in communion with everyone who has come. So you're not just hurtling through the galaxy with the other players. You're going with the tribe, the whole tribe.
When you are just playing the three of you and you're not singing, is it different than when you're actually singing? Are you thinking differently? Like, do you think of yourself as just being part of the band at that moment?
Oh, yeah.
Because you have a lot of times you'll have these long extended jams where you're just playing piano.
Yeah, I love that. We did more of it on this past tour than I think I've ever done, as far as it became a thing. And it was my favorite part. It was my favorite part every night because a lot of it was maybe there was a top line, but a lot of it was call and answer between me and John Evans. And then Ash would come in and become part of the conversation. And we wouldn't know where it was going. We hadn't, we just didn't know from night to night. Mm-hmm. And that was, I think, the joy of the exploration. To realize, as a musician, yes, you're playing, but you're having to listen so intently to what they're doing in order to, again, not make it about you, because then you've missed the whole point. It's about this fluidity. And that's where I think the magic happens in music. When, sure, sometimes people take a solo and that it's part of a construct and whatever.
Yeah.
But when there's this crossing dimensions back and forth, it's, I don't know where it's going most of the time.
Because you're improvising.
Because we're improvising.
Yeah.
And I really love that. Because I don't know where we're going. And I love not knowing where I'm going. In that instance, I mean, in life, I think I'm the opposite. I want to know what's happening next week. I do. And when you have a tour, you kind of know where you're going to be for the next year.
Right.
But when you're improvising, really improvising,
yeah,
then no, I have no idea where we're going. And I just find that it's like fairies. They really exist.
Do you guys talk about these things? Or do you say, or do you just start in and start playing?
We might know what songs can hold a jam more than others.
Yeah.
And so we might have talked about it in sound check. We're going to throw this one in tonight. And
as an intro to a song or something like that.
Yeah, right? We're gonna throw this song in tonight, and maybe perhaps they're coming back on stage after the solo section. I do a song or two by myself, like Silent all these years, or whatever. And then as they're walking on, I might be noodling around, and then they start to noodle with me.
A lot of music that I hear today. And when I go see a concert, I see very little improvisation. I don't know if it's that people have a lack of confidence in doing that, or if it's just everything needs to be so scripted. What are your thoughts on that?
There's not a lot of freedom in that.
Right.
Being able to react to the energy in the room from moment to moment is so exciting. Mm-hmm. For me, anyway.
Yeah.
And so we're back to faith. There has to be faith in the players that you're playing with and faith in the audience. You can have freedom, but you have to have faith that they're going to go with you. And so that means the show can change every night. Mm-hmm. And we can react to what is happening in that city that day.
Yes.
I'll never forget, a note got back to me, this is years and years ago, and we were in a country where there had been a terrible tragedy, and children had died horrendously. And a note came back and said, please don't play Winter. And I talked to people from that country backstage. I pulled them aside and said, please give me tell me what this means. And they said, we're grieving still. We can't hear this song about a young girl and her father or her grandfather, because so many of us have lost a niece or a nephew, and some have lost children that'll be here tonight. So we're not ready to hear that. And that changed the whole design of the show for me. Because that didn't just affect Winter, that affected other songs that had that parent-child relationship. And so it's things like that, the moment to moment, and that is an extreme example of it, but knowing what a city is dealing with and the people that are coming there, that means that we can reflect what's happening to those people, and it's designed for them, and it will never happen again. It won't be that exact same show ever again.
Right.
Even if I had the same songs in the show, which I rarely do in the same way, it won't be the same because it is designed for them. And I don't finish the set list and I drive the crew insane. I do not release it. There are people standing outside my dressing room door and knocking on that door. My husband, being, who needs a set list anyway? She's going to change it halfway through the show.
Right.
So, and we can do that too. We don't have to follow the set list. And I'll just,
Do you do it based on the energy you're feeling from the crowd?
Yeah.
You'll be like, it needs this now.
Yeah. Yes. And we're back to, when you talk about maybe you're not hearing a lot of that with the new artists. I wish they would allow themselves to feel that, to experience that. Because again, we're back to these ideas of a paradox. To have such ability to go anywhere you want to, but you have to surrender to the moment. And it makes me sad to think that other musicians aren't having that experience, because truly there's nothing like it in this world. Nothing. It's the most wowza thing I've ever experienced.
What makes a melody beautiful?
It's more than the notes, that's for sure. Sometimes it's the silence, it's the phrasing, the pause.
When you're writing a song, does the music come first and then the melody and then the lyrics, typically?
It's different all the time.
Okay.
It really is.
What would be a song that you had the lyrics first to? Is there something that comes to mind?
It's rare from the old catalog that the lyric would come first. If we're talking, say, about Little Earthquakes, sometimes things would come together at the same time. Even if it's a phrase or a word, it'll have to be that word.
99% of the people that I've interviewed, songwriters, the music comes first, and they usually will have a wordless vocal that will have a couple words in there that will end up being in the song. I think that I read with the Beatles, every song, the music came first, except for Across the Universe. I believe John Lennon had the lyrics first.
It's a mystery sometimes how these things come. Somebody can say something, and all of a sudden, a whole world opens up. Somebody can mention the name of a town, and I might not have heard of it before or been there. And all of a sudden, and it's not about the town. It's a way in to talking about a young woman whose pain is so great. And yet there we are. And how these triggers happen, I don't know. Because yes, I could write a song every day, but I don't think anybody would want to hear it. That's not the ephemeral magic that we're talking about. And how that is, where it is, I know you can't buy it at Selfridges. I know I can't order it from Amazon. And I love ordering from Amazon, but I can't just make it happen on demand. It doesn't work like that for me. I know of some songwriters that go in from 9 to 5 or whatever, 10 to, and just woodshed You know, they're out there doing it. And it doesn't work like that for me. However, I will say that when I come in here, and there's a little door that closes normally, and I'm inside the house, as we call it. And I just allow myself, it's allowing myself to fall on my face. You know, allowing myself to not create something beautiful. Allowing myself to just not come out with anything that moves me or anybody else the next day, you know? And not getting blue about it. Because this can happen day after day after day after day after day, and it's like I've got nothing. And, you know, on the last record, I was driving Mark crazy. I know, I was close to divorce. And they were mixing, and I was still writing. And the song that you were playing, Flowers Burn to Gold, I was writing that while they were mixing, because I'd just been out on the cliffs in Cornwall. And somehow Mary, my mother, who had passed away, just her spirit came. And I think I ran into the room over there, that there's a little upright in the hallway. And because they were mixing in the control room, and it was just coming. It was coming, and it was coming together. But I knew the phrase, flowers burn to gold.
Which is a beautiful, evocative phrase. I mean, before I even listened to that song, when I saw the title, I said, I'm going to that song first. I saw that, I'm reading down, it was like, what does that song sound like? I'm gonna play it here.
Voices in the breeze, I scan the sea. Someone said they thought they saw you there through a cloud in the Midwest. Then I thought, could it be you? By the way you were described, she had the kindest eyes.
The piano part, the way you roll into the chords, the beautiful full, you have those full chord, the spread triads, I call them, in the left hand. And you're using the low register of the piano. It's so evocative, and it's beautiful. It starts right out. So is this something where you had the idea for it and then you just started playing?
Sometimes I feel like I'm just living in a haze when a song is taking over my being. And I'm just guided to this beautiful creature. And truly, you know, at a certain point, you throw all the technique away. You throw it all away, and you let her play you. And I just have to hope Mark is capturing it. And he usually does. He's usually got record on all the time. And, you know, I must say there's a lot of useless crap that's recorded, but Flowers Burned to Gold was just one of those moments where I was trying to honor Mary. And, you know, that's the funny thing about it. Sometimes I am crafting, you know, a narrative. I'm trying to craft a story. I felt her presence out on the moors. And so trying to reel her in and hold on to her as long as possible, but then tell the story at the same time, knowing that as I was playing, I was having to let her go. And it's that loss, I think, that's in the phrasing, trying to hold, not let her escape, because with each note, she's leaving. She came and stayed with me for a while, and I hadn't felt her presence in quite a while. And then knowing that as I'm playing this, that she's going to be gone again. And once it was done, she's gone. That 3.5 minutes, that 4 minutes.
Flowers Burned to Gold, such a beautiful image. I don't even know what it means.
Yeah, well, that's why, you know, again, I feel like the muses drop these things, and I'm kind of frozen by them for a minute, and I'll jot it down in somewhere. In the old days, it would be anything I could get my hands on, but I usually carry something, even if I have a receipt on me, it's to write something down when it comes.
Yeah.
And yeah, these things do happen. I mean, they've been happening over the last week, but they hadn't happened for months before then. So it's just one of those things where sometimes I feel like I'm out in the desert and getting nothing.
Do you get frustrated then? Or do you know that eventually the ideas will come?
Yeah, I guess I do get frustrated. And I get sad because they usually come, but sometimes it's not on my timeline. And it's not coming as fast as I want it to come. Mm-hmm. And I might be trying to push it, but nothing is really coming together. So when you get these nuggets, do I know that there's something there? Yes, but I don't know always how to find it or go about finding it. I mean, I might come in here, and there was this song, Bells for Her. Let's see. So having that motif was something that was circling me at the time. And I couldn't get away from it. I didn't know the story yet. But it was, I was living and breathing that over and over and over and over again, like a music box. And JPS, John Philip Chanel, had come and prepared this piano, this old upright. And I was able to bring it to that. And because of the sound of this prepared piano, it began to develop. I knew then what the story was about. Two women whose friendship was on the line, who had been very, very close, and something had severed between them. And it came from a real place, but it was because of the motif and then the sound that then brought it all together, and that song is Bells for Her.
Do songs come in all different ways?
Oh, they come in all different ways. And sometimes at the most inconvenient moments. But when they're coming, it is a different feeling than when I'm just messing about. Because I can mess about all day long, and nothing really, like I said, it's just messing about, and it doesn't move me when I listen back. And then out of nowhere, something can come, and I know it's not just coming from me. I know the difference. And some people, you know, might not believe me, and that's okay. But I mean, I think my daughter questions this sometimes. She'll be like, you know, Mom, really, come on, just admit that you're denigrating yourself by not saying that this is coming from you. In a way, I mean, that's not being a feminist, Mom, you know, but it's true. There are these beings that I call the muses, and I can tell the difference. I know the difference when it's just me. And yes, I do collaborate with them. I co-create with them. But I know when it's just me coming up with stuff, and when there's this other force that's interacting, and that then I'm aligned with some kind of collaborative spirit.
If I said to you, Tori, what's your favorite song to play live?
The question would be with
who?
The trio. Yeah, with who's playing. When it's by myself, it's a little different. Because I think I go more, usually minor key.
Interesting.
And not so groove oriented. But when it's the guys, then yeah, I love to find that pocket. So it's a different thing, having the pocket on your own. Doesn't mean you can't groove by yourself. Of course you can, if you can groove. Not everybody
can groove.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
I knew this great piano player. I had a lot of respect for her. And she said, I can't groove. And I said, I know, sunshine. I'm sorry, but I know. And she said to me, well, can you teach me? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. See, I studied Stevie Wonder as a little kid. When you talk about grooving, this really good piano player was playing from her hands. And I kicked the stool away, and I said, and don't worry, I won't do this to anybody. I said, okay, put your hands on my hips, and I'm not being weird. And she did. And then I said, you play from here. You play from here. You don't play from here. These are just, you know, things that go on the piano keys. But you play from here. And so she said, well, can you put your hands on my hip? I said, yeah, I will if you're not, you know. And I was working with her and her hips, and I said, if you start working with this every day. And I saw her again like 3-4 months later, and she said, it's changing. And she showed me, and it was changing. Wow. Now, I'm not saying she was Stevie Wonder yet.
No.
Okay? But who is? I mean, who is?
Right.
When you're talking about, just... you move with your body. But then if Ash were in the room and John was in the room, then this would become a whole other thing. Within 10 bars, we could move into something else. And that's when playing with other people, that's when the jams start to go. And I live for a jam. Live.
How many songs will you write for a record? I always wonder about this.
The more ideas you get, sometimes you realize how not so good some of the other ideas are. So the bar starts changing, because then I realize who this creature is, who this record is becoming. What is this energy? Where are we going? I thought we were going somewhere else. And then now we're going somewhere I didn't know. And so, I mean, this can happen. That's you're in the unknown. I mean, I'm in the unknown. I'm there with the unknown, feeling it completely surrounding me. And you have to set the bar high for yourself. And I realize some records don't relate to people. And I also know that sometimes people aren't in a place to receive a certain record. If they're not in a place, say, to receive grief, then I don't know if Flowers Burn to Gold is something that they would want in their sphere, because it is very much about dealing with grief. And so certain songs are not received at a certain time, but then people have come to me and told me that certain songs, it took 20 years for them to resonate and align with them. And, that's okay too. It's really none of my business. The songs have told me this. It's none of my business. Once they leave here, and I always, once we finish the mastering process and they leave, and then they head out to the record label and beyond, there's always a moment when the team, we sit and just realize they're not ours anymore.
Right.
They're not ours. And that's a huge moment for me. It's a difficult moment. And I see the girls go down, I've always said some have lunchbox with tequila in it. Some, have mocktails. And I know they're not mine anymore.
How do you know when a record's finished?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Because you can really screw it up. And the way you really screw it up, the stories I've heard over the last decades, is that the band, or the artist, or the producer, or all of them, do not know when to stop. Usually it's not the ones that I've heard of. I've heard both, to be honest, I've heard both sides. So when a band hasn't recorded enough and they've allowed that material to not develop. Mm-hmm. So they've set the bar too low and they didn't push it far enough. That's one scenario, as we know. But The heartbreaker for me, the one that gets me every time, is when I've heard, usually the mastering engineer or somebody like that, an engineer, say to me, God, we had it. He or she created this most amazing work. And then, day after day, they started to mess with it. Because they were looking for perfection. And yet they had the magic. Everybody was moved by it. And then they're cutting it up, adding more stuff, getting different takes, replacing this, tweaking here, tweaking there. And then it's gone. And you can lose it. You can lose it in a mix. And what you can't do is fix it in the mix.
Right.
If it's not there before the mix, it's never going to be there. Don't let anybody tell you differently, because then it's not in the playing.
Right.
The faders should come up. That doesn't mean we can't do some, lippy, a little lippy. We can do that.
The first few records were pretty much a couple years apart. You did Little Earthquakes in 92, Under the Pink 94, Boys for Pele 96, From the Choir Girl Hotel 98. So you get these things. And during that time, this is all pre-internet.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So on these tours, there's going to be new songs that come in that you try out, I'm sure.
Well, we were trying out the jams. And that was the new material. But as far as songs go, I usually don't roll out a song. Not usually. Sometimes something will be written when we're, improvising. And there might be a little ditty that comes before a song. Those things happen. Mm-hmm. But rarely do they turn into then a new construct for a new composition. So I don't really try out material live, or I haven't used the internet in that way.
Historically, when I would go see bands in the 70s and 80s, that they would play songs off their new record before the record came out. And they would try them live and see which ones worked.
Oh, wow.
And you can't really do that. So comedians complain about they can't try material out because it's on YouTube the next day.
Well, right, yeah.
If they use a joke or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's a hindrance.
Yeah. Do you ever go back and look at performances of old concerts?
Somebody made me do this in the last year, and so I did. Yeah, I did. And it was wild because I remember the time so well. And I thought to myself, God, where did all that energy go? I had so much more energy than I think I do now. Than I have now. There was a lot of energy, a lot of power. And that's been the one thing that I'm having to come to terms with, is that shifting. And, for a while I've been bummed about it, but at the same time, I have to make those adjustments. So design music that has breath built in.
Maybe an interlude or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So that the constructs have instrumentals in them, or moments of playing, or moments where we can improvise.
The industry has changed dramatically since 1999 when Napster happened. And up until then, it pretty much functioned the same. The music industry functioned the same.
And it was flawed.
It was flawed.
But we had an industry.
Yeah. Then the industry floundered for years until they figured out the streaming model, which is not a great model. Do you use things like Spotify to listen to music? Do you ever make your own playlists, or how do you engage with music typically?
In Florida, for a while, Tash had gotten me and Mark this little record player, and we were getting LPs, and I was really enjoying that. I was getting lots of things from the 70s. And I was enjoying that because it brought up, memories for me. But yeah, I will listen to a streaming service, sure, when I want to search for something, yes. But at the same time, because we have access here, when we want to listen to something in the control room, we've got the PMCs, the Jennies.
Yeah.
It's a great way to listen to a record. And, when you're married to a sound engineer, he's able to get up anything, really. So, on any format. And I don't think we have a CD player, though, anymore. I think we have a LP, we have a turntable.
What is a go-to album that you always have loved, that if you're in a certain mood that you'll say, oh, I want to listen to that? Is there something that, or maybe a few different albums that you think are just perfect albums?
So Peter Gabriel. I go to that a lot.
It really hits on every level, the songs, the singing, the sound.
Yeah. Perfect
album.
Yes. There's so many, though, that I love, if I'm honest with you. Joshua Tree. I remember going out to Joshua Tree right after that came out with Beanie, one of my best friends, who, bless her. And we would go out and just stay in the desert for a couple days, having listened to it. I hadn't been to Joshua Tree before I heard it. And, to take a pilgrimage there after hearing that music at that time, that's the thing about some of these records. I mean, when you hear Hotel California, wow. Yeah. But I remember hearing it for the first time. I remember.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where hearing those harmonies, I mean, that's the thing about that band.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Those harmonies, the intricacies of that. Hearing it for the first time, before.
I remember.
You remember, see?
Yeah. Wow.
We were so fortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, we were so fortunate to hear a Joni Mitchell for the first time. Stevie Wonder, oh my God. Some of his records are my favorite records, my go-to records. They just never cease to blow my mind.
Mm-hmm. When I interviewed Daniel Lanois, he produced So and Joshua Tree back to back in 86 and 87. Those two records. Yes.
I didn't know that.
And I asked him about that, and they're so different, the two records. But it's fascinating to me that those two just monumental records were done by the same producer that sound so different and done one after the other. When you mentioned those, it just popped into my mind, me asking him about how do you work on one record and then go to the next and create these different sounds.
How does it feel to be you? I mean, that's pretty cool. That here you are in this time.
Tori, here I am talking to you.
Yeah, but you were here in this time. I didn't know. And somebody said, this guy did this thing on Little Earthquakes. And I said, oh, that's nice. And then they made me watch it. And I was in not such a good place, to be honest with you. I was pretty blue. And it gave me this injection, gave me this reminder that I'm not dead yet. Be grateful. Look at what I have. Do something with it. And sometimes, all of us need that. All of us need that. And I will say, if you live long enough, team out there, you're going to have to face that sexy lady menopause. Or man pause, because that's real for men too. And I think it might show itself differently. I'm not a guy, so I don't know. But anyway, you're going to face it, a them pause, so everybody feels included. But it can really be a monster. And I want to acknowledge that, because I know it's not the most sensual thing to talk about, but if you can get through it and find a way to the other side without it completely destroying your self-confidence, then I think there's a new way of seeing things. There is something to be said for experience. There is. Absolutely. I couldn't appreciate it when I was first going through it. But once you get through it, and I'm not saying there aren't days where I slip, but I am saying that, you don't have to think about it when you're 30. But it is a gift coming your way, my friends. And you can get through it. You really can. And make the shifts so that you can have a fascinating journey.
Well, there was a reason that I had the radio on and I heard that song on my 30th birthday. I heard you. I was introduced to your world. And then the next day, that inspired me to go right to the record store. And I found both CDs, the 5-song EP, and then Little Earthquakes. And I bought those. And I still have the CDs. And I'm fortunate to have a place where I can talk about music and these records that have been really important to me, and you're so important. And it's an honor to get to sit with you today. I appreciate it. And I'd always hoped that I could interview you and, or have a conversation with you.
Yes.
And it was so fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you for your music.
Thank you.
I'd like to once again thank Tori for being my guest today. Remember, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Thanks for watching.